There are few cultural artifacts more iconic than the MOAI, so now let's use Speculative to respectfully reimagine them. Hey everyone! MOAIs are monolithic statues from the island of Rapa Nui, famous for their iconic, unique appearance and for the way everyone uses the emoji when I say something on chat, doubtlessly standing in awe at my wit. So with that in mind, we're going to now reimagine them using Spec-Evo. Please consider liking, hyping and subscribing if you like this video. And now, without further ado, let's get started! The lives of humans often become intertwined with the natural world in deep, meaningful ways, informing our lives and culture to an extent that can hardly be fully measured. Today's file takes us to one such organism, one that has the scientific notation of Spatharinus lithoderma, but which is much more famous for the name given to them by the people that share their habitat, MOAIs. These enormous mylodonted ground sloths migrated from South America to the island of Rapa Nui, also known by the colonizer name of Easter Island, through a rafting event, as populations were transported by rafts of floating vegetation towards this place. In their new habitat, these already large herbivores, safe from predators and competition, became even larger as a result of island giantism, in modern times being able to reach around 7 meters in height while standing, with the tallest recorded individual having measured around 10 meters tall and weighing around 25 tons. Animals this big are, of course, vulnerable to overheating in such environments, but MOAIs have successfully adapted by developing a series of skin flaps that help them shed the heat and by losing all of their fur, leaving their skin covered in hard osteoderms that once acted as a defense against their now absent predators. Behavioral adaptations against the heat are also present, including their tendency to rest within the deep burrows they dig using their strong arms and spade-shaped nose, as the temperatures are much lower underground, and also taking dust baths in volcanic ash, which helps them get rid of parasites as well. These ground sloths live in large herds, composed of one or few mature males, several adult females, and all of their young. Mature males are easily identified not only due to their greater size relative to the rest of the herd, but also by the presence of a large head structure known as a pukao, so called due to its resemblance to the hair knot of the Rapa Nui people. This structure is composed of flesh and cartilage growing from the top of the MOAI's head, which is not only a visual indication of their age and good health, but also acts as a resonating chamber, amplifying the calls of males to help them gather their herds, as well as broadcasting their presence as a warning to potential competitors. MOAI are almost exclusively herbivores, feeding on the leaves, shoots and nuts of the palms present in the island of Rapa Nui, the populations of many of which have been drastically reduced since these animals evolved. They do, however, have an alternate food source, as they will occasionally supplement their diet with fish and marine invertebrates found along the coasts. In order to reach this food source, MOAI will travel miles from the island pockets of forest to the shoreline, massive migrations that may not seem like a great distance for a human, but to such slow animals will take a couple days to complete, especially when encumbered by the presence of young among their numbers, which can easily get distracted or lost. These sloths have a very slow metabolism, hardly a rarity among folivorans, and once they have fed to their heart's content, they will sit down and stand in place for days on end, slowly digesting their meal. This sitting position, which is illustrated in today's file and is one of the most associated with the MOAI, will give them a good view of their surroundings so that they can safely organize should any predators approach, a relic of the times when they still had predators. While the eventual arrival of humans would come to have dire effects on the environment and the unique ecosystem of Rapa Nui, these settlers had a much better relationship with the MOAI sloths themselves than would be expected from human history. Rather than hunting, culling or domesticating them, the Rapa Nui people thought of these animals as sacred beings, revering and even, as their settling of the island advanced, caring for them in whichever way was possible without interfering in the course of their natural lives and reproduction. They would, for instance, help bathe the MOAIs in ash and rub them with pumice to help keep them healthy, and even help guide them during their travels to the shores, especially the younger members of the pack, which they would hold onto using ropes to help them walk along the roads. Thanks to their huge size and slow metabolism, MOAIs can have very long lifespans, far in excess of a human being's, meaning, many times, the Rapa Nui would care for a MOAI since its birth, to eventually pass away and have their own descendants keep caring for the magnificent creature. Soon, many lineages would know and care for the MOAIs and their descendants generation after generation, making the MOAIs living reminders of their ancestors and their time and works on Earth, especially once they took to writing the stories and genealogies of the Rapa Nui people on the osteoderms of the MOAI, a process that did not harm the organism in any way, at the expense of needing to be retouched on a yearly basis. Unfortunately, as mentioned a moment ago, the presence of the Rapa Nui people would end up having unintended consequences, as their activity, as well as that of invasive species accidentally transported by them, would end up decimating the tropical forest that grew on the island, and on which the MOAI sloths and many other types of animals would feed on. This caused their populations to dwindle despite the cares of the Rapa Nui people, an issue that would be severely exacerbated by the posterior arrival of European colonizers in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, as they would hunt and capture these amazing creatures to be featured in zoos and private collections, almost driving the MOAIs to extinction. In the present, the population of MOAIs in the island of Rapa Nui is estimated to be a bit over 900 individuals, leading to them being given the status of critically endangered species. While these populations have become somewhat stable thanks to modern conservation efforts and constant monitoring, tourism to the islands is heavily regulated in order to prevent potential risks to the species. All of this work has been fruitful, and the populations are expected to recover thanks to the attempts to re-establish the island's original ecosystems. And that's it for Speculative Biology look into MOAI status, with a big thanks to Aloe Varys, who commissioned this episode. So, as always with this kind of deal, one of my main interests was to remain as respectful as possible to the original culture that created these amazing works of art and to their meaning, even if it included the whole deal about making them into a realistic organism and all. And so the relationship between the Rapa Nui people and the MOAI status was a very important part of getting the episode to feel right. The other big part was, of course, the organism itself. And while we had figured from the beginning that a ground sloth would be a good model to follow, thanks to their slow metabolism, digging behavior, rock-like osteoderms, and geographical proximity, during the design phase I was a bit astounded by how un-MOAI-like the ground sloths are. So it took me more than a couple passes at the concept to get it just right. But the development of skin flaps and a pointy nose were incredibly helpful in getting that iconic look, with which, in the end, I'm rather satisfied with. So I hope y'all had fun watching this episode. Please let me know what other episodes involving similar cultural phenomena you'd like to watch in the future. And also, thank you to our researchers and research associates who support us through Patreon and YouTube memberships. And once again, to Aloe for commissioning this one. And remember, you too can join in if you'd like to support the making of these videos. And doing so also means you get early looks at all of our episodes, or even help us mold them into shape over on our exclusive Patreon Discord. Or you can also like, subscribe, or write a comment telling me any type of creature you would like me to give the Spekibo treatment in the show. Any of those really help the channel a lot. Thank you all so much for watching, and see you next time on the Speculative Wildlife Research Center.